Hello, good morning, everybody, and once again, welcome with Professor Ernest Jill. And now, my students, today we are going to see the topic about the conditional sentences. When we talk about the conditional sentences, actually they are grouped into two categories. We have what we call the zero condition and first conditional. These sentences are mostly based on the scientific facts, universal truth, and logical conclusions, which means that it presupposes that the actions or things that you talk about could be true if actually they fulfill those conditions. On the other ground, we have the other category of the second and third conditions, whereby these conditional sentences are not about things that could be true. That's why we call them the hypothetical situations, because they present or they do present cases that will never be true, since that they present things that have already taken place in the past. Okay, now by this, therefore, it means that we can try to see the sections from each one of the cases. That means the conditionals based on the first condition and the zero conditions, and then we shall look on the other side conditionals that are based on the second conditionals and the third conditionals. When we come to the zero conditionals, we have the structure, which is very important for us to have the structure, because this one will give us the idea on how to go about it, each one of the conditionals. When it comes to the zero condition, we need to have what we call the if clause. Clause, in other words, is what we call just like a phrase or a statement, or in other words, is like a sentence. It's only that when it comes to the conditionals, we talk in terms of clauses. Therefore, the sentence is always divided into two parts, whereby we have what we call the if clause, and then we have the main clause. This actually is the determining part of the sentence, that if a certain thing or condition has been fulfilled, then automatically this main part of the sentence, or the principal part of the sentence, will be fulfilled. Okay, therefore we have some examples on the zero conditionals, whereby you can see that this first sentence is based on the scientific fact, since we have seen that the zero conditional and the first conditional are based on things that are verified through the scientific facts or universal truth or the logical conclusion. There we have the first sentence. If you freeze water, it turns into ice. This means that it's something scientific that was sure. If you take your water, if you put some water in the fridge, automatically it will change into ice. And that means that it can be true. Nobody will doubt that. We have then the second one. If I work too much, I get tired. Of course, it means that this is a logical conclusion that when you work too much, at the end of the day, automatically you'll be tired. Number three, if I have time, I usually go to the movies. This is something that you base it from your truth, what you morals or the logical conclusion from what you base it from your side. Another one could be, if she eats a burger, she gets an allergy. That means that this person has an experience of being allergic whenever he or she eats foods that are allergic to him. Therefore, you can see that the first zero conditional, it is based on sentences that can be true. Then when it comes to the first conditional, also it is on the same ground of the zero conditional, whereby we have the structure of the if clause, main clause. We can see that the structure for the first conditional is the present tense in the if clause and the future tense, which means things like will, can, may. This is because all these can and may could be showing the possibility, of which then is a future tense. Whereby if we just retreat, we could see that in the zero conditional, the if clause and the main clause hand all present tense in both cases. Present tense in if clause and present tense in the main clause. And again, when it comes now to the first conditional, you can see present tense is only the change and the future tense. So the change is only the main clause. And we have some corresponding examples. For instance, if it rains today, I'll stay at home. This is, of course, for me is a logical conclusion, because if I was intending to go outside and then automatically it rains, then I'm going to stay in my house. Another sentence is, if he is busy now, I'll come back tomorrow. Another one, if I have time, I will visit or I'll visit my parents this afternoon. It means that mostly you do visit your parents in the afternoon. But then it presupposes that if you have time. So generally speaking, you can say that all this is based on things that could be true. And therefore, nobody will really negate all these facts. And then coming to the second conditional and the third conditional, as we have said, these are mostly based on things that will never be true because they do present cases that have already taken place in the past. And if we look at the structure of the second conditional, it is the if plus the past tense, that's past simple, plus in the would, plus could, plus, or might, and the verb. That means that if clause, we need to have the past simple. In the main clause, we need to have either would or could or might because it's a possibility. Then plus the verb. And something else that we need to note on these conditionals, second and third conditional, is that despite that we have the verb to be as were and was for different subjects, but then when it comes to the second conditional or the conditional sentences, we do use were for all the subject. It doesn't matter that we normally say I was. No, in the conditionals we use I were, if I were, if you were, if she, if he were, if it were, if you were, if we were, and if they were. It doesn't matter that we use were for all the subjects. Then we have some examples, and as we said from the beginning that they present cases that will never be true. For instance, if I won the lottery, I would travel around the world. This means that for sure I will not be able to travel since that I did not win the lottery. It presupposes that I ought to have won the lottery so that I couldn't travel, but then it's something that already took place in the past tense. That's why it will never be true, and therefore it becomes an hypothetical situation. We have more examples like, if I were in Brazil, I would go to Rio de Janeiro. How could I go to Rio de Janeiro if actually I didn't go to Brazil? It presupposes that I should have gone there so that I could go to Rio de Janeiro. It means that it is something that took place in the past and I had no other option. We have others. If I were you, I would buy that car. How could I buy that car for sure if I was not the one, I were not you? Therefore, it will never be true. That's why we are saying that the second and third condition present cases that will never be true. Going to the last type of conditional sentences, it's what we call the third conditional. And in the third conditional, it's very important also to identify that the structure is if clause plus the main clause. We have if plus the past perfect. Now here it changes a little bit because in the second conditional it takes on the simple past, but then in the third conditional we add perfect part. It becomes past perfect, and in the main clause we just put would. In the second clause we add only would, could or might, but then in the third conditional we are adding something else that we are calling have plus past participle, or what I make fun with students call it to add the PP. Therefore, this is what we call the conditional perfect part. That's why you'll say plus would plus have plus past participle or plus PP. Okay then. From there, we have some examples that we have been given here. If I had won the lottery, I would have traveled around the world. My God, this present case that is already in the past tense, and that's why it will never be true, because then I did not win the lottery. Then how will I travel to the whole world? It is impossible. That's why it is also an hypothetical situation. Again, if I had seen him, I would have told him about you. It means that I would have maybe gossiped something or to tell him or heard something about you, but since I did not see you, how could I have told him something about you? And the last one, if I had known the answer, I would have raised my hand. This comes automatically to see that mostly when we have some students in the class and you ask him or her the question, he or she doesn't know, and therefore she doesn't answer the question. That's why the student may say, no, teacher, I did not answer the question simply because I did not know the answer. That's why then we say, if I had known the answer, I would have raised my hand. But because of keeping quiet myself, that's why I did not know the answer. That's typically why I kept quiet. Therefore, we simply say that also it's an hypothetical situation, and that's what we say by conclusion that the second condition and the third condition will never be true. And now, that being the case, now we are going to have some moments in silence whereby you are going to make a simple quiz whereby the issue that you are going to write 4 sentences, that 2 of each sentence should be based on each one of the conditional. That means you are going to write 1 sentence in 0 conditional, 1 sentence in first conditional, another sentence in second conditional, and the last sentence in the third conditional. Thank you so much for listening this course, and this topic, I think it's going to be very easy if you just follow the steps and mostly to bear in mind the structure that is based for each and every part of the conditional. So now let's have some moments of silence, and so that from there we may be able to continue with the exercise.